It's now 91 days until the November election, until we choose to alter the course of history at the ballot box. We stand right now at a precipice. With one election, the liberal ideology could suffer a setback from which it would take years to recover. With just one election, the dream held for future generations by a motley crew of farmers and businessmen could be forever obliterated. Now, pundits say that every election is the most important election, but this time you better believe them. On August 1st, while everyone focused on whether or not Michael Phelps would beat Ryan Lochte or whether Michaela Maroney would earn a perfect score on the vault, the birth control mandate kicked into effect. Religious liberty was legislated out of existence without public outcry. American business owners are now responsible for the results which stem from sexual decisions made by supposedly independent women. Insurance providers began contacting female employees that same day, informing them that they're now entitled to abortion-inducing drugs, sterilization, and birth control pills through their employer. Business owners with less than 50 employees face higher premiums, or they can pay a penalty of up to $100 per employee per day. But more importantly, these business owners are told that they have to subsidize the private choices of workers regardless of their own religious beliefs or practices. Churches and other religious institutions are barely allowed exemption, but as for everybody else, abide or pay. That's what the administration considers a compromise. That compromise is a complete violation of the First Amendment. Owning a business doesn't mean a forfeiture of your First Amendment rights. Your neighbor can't demand that you pay for her abortion-inducing drugs, so neither should owning a business make such a demand permissible. This is about the free practice of religion. Christians don't simply turn off their faith when they leave their house. It's not formal wear that they slip off the hanger only for Sundays. It's a lifelong, everyday, 24/7 practice. It's discrimination if you force an employee to violate their religious beliefs. So what right does an employee have to force their employer to violate theirs? Where is the protection for the job creators? This persecution of your religious right happened on August 1st, and it should have made headlines, but it didn't. And you see, back during the days of the suffrage movement, feminist founders like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, both of whom were pro-life, by the way, marched in the street against government involvement. They wanted the equal right to vote. Give us the same rights as men so that we may be equal. These women marched for freedom from government, freedom from Uncle Sam's intrusion into their lives, freedom to have the same voice as men selecting their government, freedom to earn a wage, and the freedom to keep it. Today's feminists, they march for slavery under government. It is a remarkable 180. I'm sure the original feminists would have a lot to say about a generation of women who take to the streets to petition the government to force their neighbor to buy their birth control pills because they can't stop having the sex. In return, they cede to the government, a little bit of liberty and self-respect. I would liken it to the world's oldest trade, but I think that would be an insult to the ladies of the night. Today's women claim that they are fighting for the same rights as men, but in reality, they're waging a battle for more rights than men. For what reason should the collective conscience and faith of business-owning Americans be forever compromised? Because the woman in the cubicle next to you can't get up on her own two legs and walk on down to the Target or Walmart to purchase her own birth control for, by the way, as low as $9 per month. Walmart, the only place where you can buy a 6-foot inflatable lawn Santa, have your tires rotated, buy a dozen eggs, buy some ammo, get your eyeglasses fixed, and pick up some inexpensive birth control. God bless America. By the way, these are the same women who defend the recent words and actions of Senator Tom Harkin and Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg is teaming up with the New York City Department of Health to launch Latch On New York City. It's a program aimed, not kidding, at busting up into new mothers' recovery rooms and badgering these new mothers if they choose to formula feed their newborns rather than breastfeed. Hospitals who opt in will treat formula just like it's prescription medication, and they'll keep it under lock and key. Hospitals will have to give medical reasons for dispensing bottles, and mothers who choose not to breastfeed A member of the hospital staff will aggravate them as they recover from childbirth and try to bond with their newborn, demanding to know why they choose not to nurse. Wait, according to Democrats, abortion is healthier for babies than formula? Just like Obamacare, government knows best, right? Now, days later, Senator Harkin explained to members of the press that women need the birth control mandate because, and get this, they struggle with their menses. Listen.
There are many women who take birth control pills, for example, because they have terrible menstrual cramps once a month. Some of them almost incapacitated, can't work. I know of young women myself who, because of this, are able to work and be productive. And it's prescribed by their doctor.
I told you I wasn't kidding. Without going all TMI on you, as somebody who fought endometriosis as a young adult, birth control pills are just one of the many ways to deal with such monthly incapacities. Harkin's attempt to use women as checkers pieces to argue for limited religious rights under the First Amendment shows you the full scope of Democrat sexism. Thank heavens we have old men like Harkin and Bloomberg to teach us silly women about our bodies. What happened to my body, my choice? Where are all the women who usually turn up at the slightest dog whistle, screeching about how the government needs to get out of their uteri? Another target of your First Amendment right? Your speech. Something Glenn has discussed frequently since it first made news. Chick-fil-A. I had some for lunch today. It was delicious. In my home city of St. Louis, the Chick-fil-A that my family and I visited just last week was vandalized. Don't Hate was spray painted on the building and in the drive-through lane as well. The left's brilliant logic is to fight back against what they perceive to be as hate with hate. Another restaurant in California was vandalized with a graffiti artist claiming credit and acting like a celebrity because he spray painted the stencil of a cow on a brick building and scrawled "Tastes like hate" on the side. The Kiss-In protests, scheduled for this past Friday at restaurants across the country, were unsuccessful. Shocking. And barely anybody participated. There was a media blackout of the hundreds of thousands who turned out in support of Kathy's speech, but according to eyewitnesses, at one Midwestern Chick-fil-A, 3 different network news trucks showed up to cover two protesters. I don't get that, by the way, the demand by the militant gay and lesbian faction to not judge them by their sexual proclivities, but then they demand that you pay attention to their protests done with said sexual proclivities. They claim that Chick-fil-A supported Ugandan gay killing via the Family Research Council, which a 2010 CBS report debunked after a 2-second Google search. You want to know the biggest irony in all of this? All of those who protested at the Chick-fil-A's, the thugs who chose to protest a perceived hate with hate and spray paint, they all had to put gas in their cars and drive to their locations, right? They didn't just magically teleport, correct? Where did their gas come from? Likely an OPEC country. Who are some of those OPEC countries? Saudi Arabia, Angola, Nigeria, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq. There's a lot more. What is the law on homosexuality in countries such as these? Capital punishment. Gays are put to death. Great job protesting Dan Cathy for his free speech while buying gas from countries that would kill you in a heartbeat. Sans trial simply for existing. All of this because Dan Cathy simply said he did not support same-sex marriage. It's bigotry against the Christian faith under the guise of equality. It's soft fascism by an ideology eager to use government offices to stifle opposing views by shuttering businesses in an 8.3% unemployment era. Rahm Emanuel, mayor of a city with over 250 gun deaths this year alone due to gang warfare, said that Cathy's remarks, quote, aren't Chicago values. And he was joined by other mayors and councilmen from across the country. He did, however, embrace Louis Farrakhan, the fiery anti-Semitic leader of the Nation of Islam who attacked President Obama for his support of gay rights. Do you remember when he said this?
Here's Newsweek magazine with President Obama on the cover with the colors that represent the gay community as a halo over his head, and is saying the first gay president. But he's the first president that sanctioned what the scriptures forbid. Why is it that all you politicians take your oath of office on the Bible? If the book is no good, what the hell are you using it for?
Chicago values. Emmanuel welcomed the offer of Farrakhan's members to try to push back against the epic crime wave engulfing the city. According to my friend, activist Andre Harper, I guess if Chick-fil-A lined up young black men inside their stores and shot them, that would be considered Chicago values. What about all of the progressives who voted for Barack Obama while he held the same position on gay marriage as Dan Cathy? Were they demonstrating against Chicago values?